Hello, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever else I'm sending this. If you had signed up to be notified, you might have noticed I started late. I got a new webcam, and I have to tell you something. I went back to my old webcam. Two reasons. It wasn't working. I have to figure that out. Never change technology half hour before you're going to do something live. And my new webcam, while it's beautiful and this camera is gorgeous, the little light is so bright, I'm going to have to cover it up or something. My older webcam has this gorgeous soft blue light. I can look at it so you see me speaking to you. Anyway, I'm off topic. Here we are. I am so excited today. I haven't gone live on LinkedIn, I think, for 2 weeks. Last time was all about the new features coming out on LinkedIn, but I haven't had a guest in quite a while because, as you know, I've been spending my time on Clubhouse. So if you're here, definitely let us know you're here so it becomes a conversation. If you're watching on replay, we'll get those notifications as well. My guest today, I think we've been connected actually on Twitter for a really long time, but recently connected further because of LinkedIn and other platforms. Susan McPherson is a serial connector. I'm reading this so I don't skip anything. A communications expert and the author of The Lost Art of Connecting, the Gather, Ask, Do method for building meaningful relationships at work. And that's what made me want to have her on as a guest. Welcome, Susan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Beth. And believe me, my heart goes out to you on the tech issues. And I joked with you early on the conversation. If this is the first time, you are very, very fortunate.
It really is. I was thinking maybe the software from the with the new webcam was conflicting. Who knows? But here we are. So this is wonderful. And for people who know me, you may not know, or maybe you know, I've had guests where we've talked about it. When I first got involved in networking, I never consciously did networking until 11 years ago when I was in transition and my life insurance agent said, "Would you like to come to my networking group?" Now, of course, I did networking within the organization that I worked at without naming it anything, right? But so it opened up a whole world for me in such an interesting way. So I am really excited to talk about this today. So what inspired you to write this book? Tell us a little bit about you in general, and then what inspired you to write this book.
Sure. And I do want to just make a quick delineation. The book is about connecting, not networking.
Right.
And
good point.
Not anti-networking at all, but you'll see in our conversation that there is a definitive kind of difference between the two.
That's great.
For those who are shy or tend to be introverted, it's a nice relief. So I have been a serial connector since I was very, very young. And I tell a funny story in the book that at the breakfast table back in the late 60s, 70s, when I grew up in upstate New York, I used to vie for space at the breakfast table to have my bowl of cereal because my parents would have the 5 local newspapers spread out and yesterday's New York Times because it came a day late. And then they would be clipping and cutting articles that they would then go type in on their respective manual typewriters, put in envelopes, and send off saying, "Thinking of you, cousin Harry, thinking of you, colleague Joan, thinking of you, former student Elizabeth."
And that's in your blood.
Yeah, I thought everybody's parents did.
My mother used to send me clippings from college and even afterwards.
Yeah, well, so you have a bit of it in your blood. But it was literally about 4 years ago that I started to really get concerned that we had all, including myself, become a slave to the clicks and likes and followers as a means to measure our success at connecting with others. which to me felt like it had lost the humanity. And a good friend of mine told me that when she dropped her son and daughter off at the school bus stop, she'd hug them goodbye, she'd watch them get up onto the bus, and then sit in their respective seats. And as soon as they sat down, their heads would go down to look at their handhelds. And then she would look around at all the other school children, and guess what? They were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I started to think, wait, this is not a good thing. Okay. Those on all the platforms we're using are going to be in 20 years on to the next anyways. So I did the obligatory book proposal, and we all know it takes years. So it was a long before there was any kind of pandemic in our site. So that was really the intention of the book, was to really get back to this meaningful connection. And when I started to write in February, a month later, the world shut down, and all we had were the clicks and likes and followers.
Yeah. And before we go on, I just want to say welcome to the people that I see here with us. Some I can't tell who you are because you didn't give the platform that information. But hey, Mark and Harrison and Denise and Steve, great to see you here. I had some technical issues myself, so we may have gotten started a little later than we expected. You know, this whole past year that we've had, do you think we're going to have to relearn how to connect?
Well, I honestly think, first of all, since we're not going to be going 0 to 60, it is going to be a gradual reemergence. There's going to be not Times Square 1945 for those of you who have studied history and know what that looks like. That's not happening. So we have a really good opportunity to be slowly practicing, and I almost liken it to riding a bike. Those first few blocks when you feel like you're about to fall up or be hit by a car. Within 3 blocks, you've got it down. So I don't anticipate we will forget how to communicate with one another.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. That's absolutely true. So you have a metaphor of, I know you said networking and connecting are different, but you have a metaphor of networking as building a constellation of relationships. And there was actually, if I could find it, I'll share it. Actually, why don't you talk about that? I'm going to see if I can find the graphic. So what does this look like for you, and how is it different from, you said it's different from networking. So let me know.
First of all, I just want to share one kind of theme that goes through the whole book. Yes, it's this constellation of connections, meaning always changing, always ebbing, always flowing. Relationships do, right? They're not linear. They're not, here today, gone tomorrow. They're not, they don't stop. I mean, sometimes they ebb and flow, but they definitely don't stop. And they need nurturing, okay? But when I think of networking, I think of very linear. I think of a transaction. I think of give and take. The book is based on the theme of not what can I get and how can I walk away with something, but always leading with how can I help? How can I support others? And when you lead with that, you are actually creating the opportunity to build stories together. When you introduce two people and you magically explain how they could potentially have similarities, you're creating a tapestry of stories. And the connection to the constellations, of course, is thousands of years ago when they were created, was basically because people would look up at the sky and try to make sense of it all. So they actually created the stories to help themselves understand whatever it was that was going on. And we know that stars are always moving constantly. Well, relationships are always moving. And as you feed relationships, they will grow and prosper. And those stories will co-create, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's why you see the concentric circles on the cover of the book.
I love it. I love just the pictures that your words are putting into my head. And actually somebody said that, Elizabeth said she loves the Times Square 1945 visualization. So I don't know if I've ever shared a screen on a live broadcast. I'm going to share something just that what you said made me think of. Let's see if it works. What does it say here? Hang on, I have things behind other things. I'm moving windows. Window. right. Let's see what it's going to do. The browser can't access your screen. Blah, blah, blah. All right. I'm not going to worry about it. I will describe it. What it is there was a beta visualization tool where it would visualize your network. It would look at your LinkedIn network, and it looks like a constellation. And it's the one that I had this beautiful red dots, like a thing here, and then a big circle of blue dots and green dots and some purple. And what fascinated me was the lines between, not just, so one might be where someplace I worked, or one was some other organization I was involved in, but the lines that connected all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the stories we create when we actually connect people. And we never know what's going to happen, right? That's the beauty of it. It is this notion of we don't know what we don't know.
I love that. That's great. And by the way, everyone who's here with us, if you have a question or a comment, I think this is such a fascinating topic, because it's right, especially this past year, how much are we craving connecting?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, though, I mean, and this is something I learned from writing the book during a global pandemic, is that we are being much more intentional with how we connect and how we communicate with one another. And that is something, I'm asked about, future, like what's going to happen when and if we get back to a sense of normalcy. Will we carry that forward? And I am an eternal optimist, so take this with a grain of salt. But I do believe, because of just how precarious it became this year, to not be able to connect with others in that real capacity, that we are never going to lose sight of the importance of meaningful relationships. And I personally have been alone for 12 months, 13 months now. I don't have children, I don't have parents, and I don't have a significant other. So it has been extraordinarily painful. I would never go so far as say, I've had it anywhere nearly as bad as people who've lost loved ones, lost their livelihoods, lost their jobs, etc. But I will just say, from a personal standpoint, it's been very, very challenging.
We're community creatures. I mean, I think, right? Like dogs in a den, or it's in our nature.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about this. So the subhead of the title of your book is the Gather, Ask, Do framework.
Yep. Well,
tell us about that.
For your audience, anytime you write a business book, you have to have a methodology or you don't get a book deal. And I am the least prescriptive person you will know. However, when I did some very deep reflection, I realized I was doing what I will share with you, the Gather, Ask, Do, for years. And it really, one of the kind of raison d'etres, or the reasons I was able to feel confident about writing this book, is I founded my consulting company at the age of 48. And it is now almost 8 years old, and 95%, thank you, 95% of our business has been inbound. So what that tells me is those meaningful connections I started building in my 20s and 30s and even 40s have come back around. And it is not like in my 20s, 30s, and 40s I knew or had even the desire or the wish to become an entrepreneur and run a company. And we're about to hire our 13th employee.
I love it. Well, want to hear something interesting? I started my business at around the same age. Aww. And I think it's the perfect time to start a business. I really do. Because you've experienced working for other people, or it just, I don't know. I think it's the right time. But anyway, something Elizabeth said, she loved that you said the stories we create when we connect one another. And she has a question. What creative ways have you seen people safely connecting now?
Many, many ways. I mean, and you're saying a walk and talk for sure. Any kind of physical, you can't really bike ride together, but hiking, walking outdoors, cooking classes, all of those types of things can be really, really valuable. I'm also a huge fan, and many of you, I'm sure, use this, but the chat function in the various video platforms we use, I think is a great way to not only check in with our colleagues, in a very personal way where you can actually really ask people how they're doing, but also reach out to new colleagues and say, instead of, hi, can you help me? Instead, turn it around and say, hi, I know you're new. Can I help you? Or can I be of help? Or perhaps you're the new employee and you can ask them about their work so that you can then help them, right? I mean,
I love it.
always leading with that. But I think take advantage, because when we have, over the years all been in the, 9 meetings a day, meeting after meeting, physical meetings, you can't back channel. You can't be having conversations with other people. You probably
Passing notes.
well, you probably get in trouble. So this is a really great and intentional way. So
Yes.
you had asked me what the Gather Ask Do
Yes.
method
Yes.
is, and I went on that Bandcamp story about saying that you have to have a methodology, but this actually is what I have been doing. And essentially, the first and foremost is part of the Gather portion, and that is where, and I'm happy to ask all of you this one question. And you start with yourself. What does a meaningful connection mean to me? So if everyone who is here can think about that, because obviously what is a meaningful connection to me may be very different to Michael, to Elizabeth, to Harrison, to you, Beth. So just let's pause for maybe 20 seconds and think about that. And if folks want to put it in the comments, they certainly can. And Beth, so I'm just going to stop for a second. And for instance, for me, it's the people that show up in the good time and bad.
That's a great point. And if you're here with us live, feel free to put a comment in. And if you're watching on replay, put it in as well, because we can see it after the fact. That's part of what I love about going live. It's a conversation, but it has life after that conversation. Elizabeth says one where they actively listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that is the first component of Gather. The next part of Gather is thinking very intentionally, and this is something where we are right now is a perfect time to do this. And that is, what is the community that you want to build around you that is going to help you reach your goals in the next 4 years, 4 months, 4 weeks? Okay. What is the community you want to surround yourself that's going to help you meet those goals? Also, what is the ways you are going to go about making sure that that community is inclusive and diverse and doesn't look just like you? Okay.
I love that.
Lastly, what is the secret sauce, the chief differentiating factor that you bring to that community? How are you going to be helpful to others given what your superpowers are? So that is a very short and condensed version of the Gather,
Yeah.
right? Once you do that, you can get to the ask. And the ask is a little bit different than what we normally think of ask, meaning asking for what you want, what you deserve, what you need. Not against that. That's very important. But
I know where you're going. I'm gonna write it down and see if this is it. Go ahead.
in the ask section, you learn how to ask those meaningful, deep questions of others so that you can learn where they are. What are their hopes and dreams? What are their challenges? And if you listen intentionally and with care, you can actually then walk away with all the data and tools that you need to go to the third and final section, which is my favorite place to be, and that is the do. And that is where you can become the reliable, helpful, and most importantly, trustworthy person that you are. And this is something that you don't do one and done and put on the shelf, right? Anytime you're going through transitions in your life, whether you're looking for a new job, whether you're fundraising for a startup or a nonprofit, whether you want to work on a promotion, this is a great healthy exercise from which to do. And I have to say, at this kind of purgatory we're in right now, where we feel like we have one toe out the door, We can like taste it and feel it and sense it's coming, but we're just not there yet. It's a perfect time to do this exercise and start thinking about, wow, we have a do-over. What is this intentional community we want to build around ourselves?
I love that. And we have some wonderful comments. Harrison, yeah, actually, I forgot. I have tools. I can put it in the live. Love what you said, Harrison. That's wonderful. It's
Um,
communities. So part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation with you, looking back, I think that connecting and communities where it's so much more beyond work, right? It's everything in your life. It's family, it's friends, it can save a life. It can, I mean, there's just so much, right?
and
Connected
you
to
know
this.
what you don't know. And one of the other, well, there are many themes in the book, but this notion of being constantly curious,
Mm,
also never assuming something about people and making decisions not to engage with people because of assumptions. Because think of the zillions of opportunities we miss because we make assumptions that that person can't help me get to my goals.
yeah.
But we don't know anything.
We talk about this a lot. So I'm involved in a community. It does happen to be um, a networking business development group, but it's unlike your typical what people think of. And some of the conversations that we've had. So there was one recently that was, now I'm going to try to remember, was form. It was talking about family, organizations. Ooh, what were R and M? Forget what R was, and M was motivation. So talking about things more than just, hey, what do you do for work?
Mm-hmm.
And really getting into those, why do you do things, and what's behind that, and what, you know, was it something when you're 4 years old, something happened? It's really much a deeper conversation than what people have.
Amazing. I love that.
So, what do you think about, you said that relationships and connecting are always changing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that your approach can evolve over time? Different times in your life where it may need to or where you want it to.
Well, I think what certainly the gather as do methodology is wide enough, if I go so far as say that you can apply it to different situations, right?
Yep.
Um, so I don't necessarily think of it as something that is only right for this time or this time. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
So and again, I don't want to like overstate its ability, but it's really what you make of it and how you use it. And I think leading with how can I be of help is something you can do regardless of the situation.
And, and I think the step in those 3 steps that people skip the most is that first one. And
Yeah.
it may be the most important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we tend not to want to do the work to figure out what our goals are. But also, I just want to also remind everyone they can change. I mean, that's why I say 4 years, 4 months, 4 weeks, right? I mean, obviously, what we are thinking about, what we want to happen in our lives is very different in 4 years than 4 weeks, right? So, you don't have to do both at the same time, right? But, if we were to take this moment in time right now, I think, like, let's think about what we want over the next year and what is the community that we want to create around ourselves for the next year, and that becomes something that is feasible, doable.
Absolutely. So I wouldn't be any kind of interviewer if I didn't say, if people want to read your book, where can they get it? And
Oh,
I'll put it in the after the conversation, at least on LinkedIn. I go back and put some comments and takeaways and things, but
sure.
so I can put it there. But
Well, I would love to just say wherever you love to buy books. I mean, your local bookstore,
excellent.
the online shops, really what makes most sense. I am doing my audio recording
Ooh,
and that'll be available in June if people want to wait and rather listen. But right now, the Kindle is, of course, available, on online websites, but also your bookstore. You can ask.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And what do you think, obviously we could go on, but we only have a little bit of time here today. So we're coming towards the end of our time together. This time, we may have to go do a clubhouse room about it too.
I'd love to.
Too much fun. What key thing, if people are thinking about this for themselves, and especially now wanting to do more connecting and more deliberate, thought out connecting, what one thing where should they begin?
Lead with how can I help?
I love that. Writing that one down.
It's an important way to pivot, because we always have come from, certainly with networking is a position of grabbing cards, meeting more people, more. And I really think it's a very healthy pivot. It's like such a little kind of like almost like a click if we were to go too far, and just turning it on its head. And when you are having conversations with people, of course, there's the possibility that someone may question your motives. I mean, there's always going to be someone who does that. And you know what? Move on. But most of the time, if you are engaging in a conversation with somebody and really asking them how they are and how they are doing and what, for instance, they find challenging right now, you can find ways to be supportive. This does not mean you are not helping yourself. Does not mean you're putting others before you. What I'm suggesting is by showing up and offering help, you're actually helping yourself.
Well, and it's showing true interest in another person, right?
And consideration and respect. And by following up, whether it's the next day or the next week, and making mention of what you heard because you were listening, actually is the greatest gift you can give anyone, to show them that you saw them and you heard them. And it's something that we all can be doing for one another.
Absolutely. This has been so much fun. Despite our rocky beginning where I was like, what's her phone number? I'm going to call her and tell her my webcam's not working.
And I was helpless. I couldn't even help you. So much for me being helpful.
At one point, for those of you that are here with us, at one point my screen was complete. You could see me, but I was completely blue. I was going to go live like that anyway, because, why not? But it all worked out. And I so enjoyed having this conversation with you. I think there's so much more to unpack about it. And we may have to do a part 2, or maybe on Clubhouse. We'll figure it out. And everyone who is here with us live, thank you so much for your thoughts and your questions and your comments. And if you're watching on replay, the same thing. I actually know some people who like to listen to my live broadcasts after the fact, almost like a podcast, when they're walking or when they're doing something else. So maybe it's good that I didn't have that screenshot to show it didn't work. So thank you so much for your time and your insights. And I'm going to think about all the things you said, the gather, do, ask methodology. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Beth. I really, really appreciate your interest and your time.
Have a great day, everyone.